Hi, welcome to the Own Your Healthcare podcast. I'm Jessica Ardeel, and hi, who are you?
Well, on a good day, I'm Lynn Misch. Depends on where my imagination wants to take me, but generally I try to stay day to day as Lynn Misch. Sometimes you
Interesting you say that, right? Because what is reality? What is imagination? What can we create in our imagination and bring forward for a new reality? We're all looking at a lot of different versions of our own reality and different reality, and how does that all blend together, and how do we own our own leadership in that? So there is that's quite the interesting way to start, Ms. Mish, and I'm glad to see you, happy to see you, and thanks everyone for joining us. We are what are we doing today?
Oh, I think we're just gonna kind of let it wander like the path going into the mountains. I think we're just gonna let it wander into the wilderness and see what we find and what we come up with to chat about. I think one of the nice things about this, what I find with this podcast, is that it just becomes open-ended and we can explore different topics. Um, some of the topics that have really come to the table of late are the really truly being an advocate for your own healthcare, again, which falls into the category of owning your healthcare, which falls into the category of what really do you want to do with your own world of this, right? And I think sometimes a lot of it is, how do we see the outside world? And we deal a lot from the outside world, the influences that impact us in our human existence. And it's interesting. The last few years for me have been wee bit challenging with different healthcare issues. I've always been a pretty healthy girl. We were talking about the sun and that kind of thing. And I will share that I developed a metastatic melanoma in the last couple of years and have gone through treatment and have fallen on the other side of it now and have been healthy. And the interesting components is I did reach out to traditional medicine and have gone really back into the swing, which I never get too far away from that integrative approach. And so I went back and really worked to realign my energy, which I truly believe in, and have worked with Suzanne Lazowskis, who really has helped to facilitate a lot of the resetting and restoring of my energetic frequencies. And so it's been kind of an interesting, again, exploration of the self. And again, that internal dialogue that I think becomes so critical in the elements of how we live our lives day to day. And oftentimes I think we get way too far ahead of ourselves, or we get way too far behind ourselves, and we miss the opportunity to be present in each day. And I think with the different things that have happened to me, just from my own healthcare perspective, that it's really brought me back into really trying to stay grounded in the day to day, really not getting too far ahead of myself as far as um, my own existence, I guess basically would be the best way to say it. And
And
so, go ahead.
no, thank you for opening up and sharing that piece, and thank you for being real about what that's like navigating, right? And still showing up and doing life.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I think that there's lessons that come in all of it. And, I look at, as you said, this is my birthday week. And so I'm celebrating another decade of life, which is interesting. And it's interesting how we view ourselves in each decade. And I find that I'm in my seventh decade, which is kind of amazing. And in that this one particularly, I really consider myself blessed, especially being a nurse for as many years as I've been a nurse, a nurse practitioner, and educator, and all those good kind of things. That I witness different patients and families and the way that they approach their lives and disease and those outcomes. And I think it's really important to look at the whole piece of how our whole systems with the spiritual, emotional, physical, mental components are really impacted by the world around us. But it's also that internal dialogue that becomes such a critical element in our own well-being, right? The story that we tell ourselves, which I find fascinating because we're influenced a lot by the world around us, and we sometimes carry those stories with us that don't benefit us, if that makes sense, or they do, right? So it's starting off in an unusual topic, and I'm not sure, just kind of traveling down that path into the wilderness again. And it's been interesting because I've learned how to accommodate and facilitate different things that have happened in my own physical existence. With a fractured leg, I flipped off a bike, all those different kinds of things, and how I've really learned to adapt and accommodate and really modify or pursue different things in different ways. And it's just down a little bit. It's just been interesting. It's interesting how we learn to live in these bodies.
I muted myself because I have a bulldog on each end of me snoring, and I didn't want that to come. Can you hear them? I don't know.
Oh,
Yes, and so
and it's
being
okay.
able-
They're snoring. I'm sorry.
you can hear it now.
Oh, I can't. I really can't.
Oh, okay.
So it's okay.
Um, yes, and so integrating all of that too with the lunch and learns coming up and getting more specific with different things, that different topics, because really no matter what topic you put it under, we have to look at the whole picture, right? So no matter what the headline is, that we're looking at the whole picture of you and what your body is going through, and with the experiences you just shared, Lynn, of not only the physical impacts and the physical expressions, but the mental emotional navigation through all of that too. All of that is important and not one thing more than the other, right?
Well, and it's really interesting because when you deal like with a disease process, um, it becomes it's interesting as I will go in and I'll have different scans done and different things done to evaluate where my body is at, to look for different aspects of disease, and the whole mental challenge of that. When you look at that, I worked with cancer patients for a number of years. I've worked with different patients at all different levels. And it's interesting, the mental challenges that you face, the fear that you embrace, the looking at your own mortality and morbidity, the connection and all of that becomes a really interesting process to navigate through, right? Because fear can be a really strong influence in our own existence. And I think to navigate all of that and to really learn, and I think it's a process, right? It's a process. It's been a process of learning how to love myself more so, learning how to accept my own not perfection as a human being, right? Because none of us are really perfect, but we aspire to different things to achieve perfection, but we're all a unique individual entity. And to learn to really appreciate, how do we look at ourselves and how do we find the things that we really love and cherish in our own life, right? And hopefully with the lunch and learns, we'll give different strategies and tips and things to help educate. And it's always interesting when I tend to, and I do these regularly, and I have with the company, and I do them and have for a long time. But the thing that I find is that when you look at lifestyle, it really does influence significantly, our own health, the choices that we make. And we have those choices every day that we make. And it's just interesting. I had a friend of mine send me I think it's Yutka, it's called, and it's an app that talks about the different foods that you can look at and how it categorizes your foods and the quality of food that you're taking on. And is it good for you? Is it not good for you? What are the challenges in it? And she said, I've learned all kinds of stuff about myself and my eating habits and those kinds of things. But how powerful the tools are that we have at our disposal that can really influence the ability, if you're willing to make those changes in your life to have better outcomes. But you are the one that makes those choices that really has the I guess the recognition oftentimes that you want to make those choices. And then just that whole process in where do I even go to start, right? How do I even make that decision? Does it really matter? And some people just go flat out into denial and say, I'm not doing anything any different. I'm not changing that. This is where I am. This is where I'm going to stay. And that's okay. It's, there's not, I guess you hopefully encourage people to make a choice toward a better outcome. And sometimes your body makes a choice for you. And that's the piece that's really powerful. And sometimes, for whatever reason it pops up. I have a friend that's in the hospital currently and is in the hospital with a viral meningitis. And I went over there a week ago and helped and ended up calling the squad and that kind of thing. But it took him a while to figure out where my friend is at. And they had to do a series of different interventions, a spinal tap being one to accurately diagnose what was going on. And it really impacted my friend and lost a sense of his own mobility, lost a sense of his dietary intake. And then you look at what are the potential causes. Was it a tick bite? Was it a mosquito bite? What is it that created this perfect storm in the body? Now he's got some other comorbid conditions that have been treated, but he also is pretty healthy and stable for a guy that's 78 years old, right? So it's really interesting what can take that body by storm and change the outcomes of where you are in the way that you live your life, and how that can be directly influenced and really change how you are interfacing with the world at large. And the resilience and the strength that it takes to overcome some of that sometimes. It's amazing how resilient the human spirit actually is, and knowing that you do have the capacity to tap into that and really having that courage. Again, you're going into the wilderness, right? Down that path, and you don't always know where you're going or what those outcomes are going to be. And I've hiked many trails in those mountains and in the deserts and all over in all different conditions. And I think about it and I think, how blessed I was to be able to accommodate all of that and have I've always been one that kind of likes a lot of adventure and will really, seek out those kinds of opportunities to feed my soul, basically, right? So it's kind of interesting. So owning your healthcare, gosh, I think it's such a powerful topic, and I think it's a wonderful, hopefully, others will join us and really explore, the wonder of owning your healthcare and knowing that you have the right to make those decisions, and being educated and really getting the right healthcare team on board, however you engage in that. I mean, this is certainly not a replacement for your healthcare team or your doctors or those kinds of things, but it is about education. And the one thing that I really find, and I do this with my nursing students all the time, is that the healthcare system is moving so quickly that oftentimes we don't have the time to educate or reinforce or really learn the different aspects of where the individual is at, the patient is that we're seeing. And how important it is to really align with that individual and help them to make those choices, because technically it's not even technically, in reality, they're the ones choosing, right? To make the choices about where they're going to go with their own health. And gosh, there's a plethora of things out in the world with this.
And
So,
all the ways to individualize it too. That's what's really exciting. Like the food app you mentioned, I think as we continue to move forward and people have more resources in their own hands, that we will be able to individualize a lot of different aspects and realize that it does come down to the basics, right? And lifestyle and choices and what are you choosing? And two is your body making the choice for you. And then where does that separation come in and how can we unify the body as self and bring in that conscious co-creative choosing of how you're going to navigate what comes up in the body without your choosing, right? How are you going to reconnect with a body that has seemed to let you down or betrayed you in a way that now we have to continue this relationship with ourselves and continue to foster. There's so many different levels and dynamics, and we can individualize it all we want, but we still need that community aspect too, right? And so I think that's what's really important is being around a group of like-minded people that can hold the light for you when you're going through whatever you're going through.
oh, I wholeheartedly agree. I remember when I had my son, and he's going to be 33, and I had a C-section. And at the time, my husband was dying of cancer. So I've had a really full life. And he was a Vietnam vet and was exposed to Agent Orange. And we'll move fast forward, and 20 years later, he developed a cancer that they directly related to the Agent Orange. That being said, when I had to have a C-section, and my son was a big baby. He was 10 pounds, 4 ounces, and his birthday's coming soon. But he was a big, long baby with football shoulders, and he was not coming out to save my life. So they had to do an emergency C-section, and it was interesting because one of the nursing specialists came to me and asked me, how do you feel about your body? Do you feel your body let you down? And I'm like, not really, because there were so many things going on. And it was interesting in all of that to really look at, but it was an interesting question because you just brought that up and it just triggered that memory. And I'm thinking, I really didn't feel that my body let me down, but it was something that I didn't have complete control over at that moment in time. My body was doing what it needed to do. And fortunately, I had a team that came in to assist me in facilitating both of our health outcomes. I mean, we both ended up being healthy. We both ended up, I delivered a healthy baby boy. And he was a big guy. But it was just an interesting process when you said that, because
Can we say hi, Chris? Hi, Chris. And of course, just when I did that, are you frozen? Or did I freeze you? Come back.
sometimes you don't have that control. Like even when you have to connect with your own presence, your own
My internet.
wherever you are in the world of this, and hopefully we'll help people. Okay. So I think, it's interesting because the recording stopped, the recording's in progress. So I think that that's probably our note to self, right? What do you think, Jess?
Well, I love chatting with you, so let's do it again, shall we, love?
Yes, we shall. I love it. Look at your beautiful smile.
Love
It's
your face. I love your whole ensemble, your bright light shining from the inside out. Thank you for radiating peace, love, light, and healing for all of us today, Lynn, and sharing your part of the journeys. And we really, really look forward to seeing everyone again for another podcast and the lunch and learn. So look for those details, and we will say bye for now.
bye for now. And everything's coming. So we'll just keep working and connecting with y'all. So have a fabulous day.
Own your healthcare.
Yeah, you betcha. See you soon.